The Yonko have been the undisputed rulers of the New World within One Piece for decades at this point. Amongst the Yonko, there are pirate crews that are so powerful that it would take the entire might of the Marines in order to stand a chance against them. However, in recent years, this group has faced an unprecedented change that has seen 3 of the Yonko being overthrown. Now this begs the question, what version of the Yonko is considered to be the strongest? The Yonko as they stand now, or the original Yonko that we learn about before the time skip? The best way that I could think of to answer this question was to deep dive into a no-holds-barred death match with both groups facing off against one another. No outside interference, no rules, and no leaving until a winner is finally determined. If we consider the new generation of the Yonko to be the current lineup as it stands within the world of One Piece today, then we can consider the old generation of the Yonko to be how it had looked like at the start of the series, just as Luffy had set sail from Dawn Island. But even if we know the time frames, to know how a fight between the two groups would go, we first need to know just how strong each of the members are, as well as what their strengths and weaknesses are, what weapons they use, and most importantly, how their devil fruits would fare against one another. So I'm going to begin by breaking down what the lineup looks like for the latest iteration of pirates who hold the title of Emperors of the Sea. Ever since the climax and subsequent conclusion of the Wano arc, the landscape of the One Piece world has changed tremendously, with both Kaido and Big Mom being dethroned from their position as Yonkos. And this is 2 years after Whitebeard was dethroned after he was killed by Blackbeard, with the collapse of Whitebeard's crew being such a pivotal event that it was broadcast all across the world during the Marineford War. Now following these two conflicts, the Marineford War and what was essentially the Wano Civil War, it had resulted in the formation of a new generation of Yonko that are fully taking their place as the leading pirate powers sailing the seas today. Among this prestigious group we have firstly Straw Hat Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, then Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach, admiral of the Blackbeard Pirates, then Buggy the Star Clown, president of Cross Guild, and lastly Redhead Shanks, chief of the Red Hair Pirates. Starting with the two who had gained their status as emperors by ripping it away from those who had come before them, we have Luffy and Blackbeard. For Luffy, there isn't much introduction or explanation necessary. His epic battle against Kaido had culminated in the first appearance of Gear 5 and the true awakening of the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. This has gone down as one of the most iconic moments in all of anime and manga, and it had truly cemented Luffy's position as one of the strongest in the world, something that Oda went on to prove in the Egghead Island arc when he easily dispatched one of the strongest world government agents, Rob Lucci. While we likely haven't seen the true limits of Luffy's newest ability, what we have seen has already proven his immense level of strength. On the other hand, we have Blackbeard, whose displays of strength thus far have been shown to be a long string of contradictions and confusing outcomes, being the only known person to wield 2 devil fruits, one of which is regarded as the strongest paramecia in the world, and the other giving you the ability to completely nullify other devil fruit powers, as well as a whole host of other things. It would make you think that Blackbeard is incredibly powerful. However, everything that we've seen in the series thus far has somewhat acted against this. Consider his battle against Ace pre-time skip. While he did win in the end, it definitely didn't prove to us that he had the strength of a Yonko. His fight shortly after that against an aged Whitebeard who already had one foot in the grave by the time that Blackbeard had arrived had further cemented this. The fact is, Blackbeard was entirely outclassed, and if it wasn't for his extremely good fortune, he would have died then and there at Marineford. And this was only hours after him and his entire crew were one-shotted by Magellan in Impel Down, and they were only saved by the lucky intervention of Shiryu. And then when we turn our attention to Blackbeard's feats post-time skip, things do start to slightly improve, with him wiping out the Whitebeard remnants led by Marco during the Payback War and defeating the Heart Pirates in their recent battle. However, considering all of this, these weren't really difficult things to achieve for someone who should be a Yonko. His wariness against fighting Aokiji may also show a lack of confidence in his own strength, but this could also be viewed as more of an indication of Blackbeard's personality as opposed to his actual capabilities. Blackbeard is without a doubt an opportunist, and while his schemes, plans, and his decent amount of luck have allowed him to ascend to the position of Yonko, it has also been because he has displayed enough strength at each specific point to get himself out of situations where he is in danger. And let's not forget that Blackbeard is the only person in the entire series who had managed to scar Shanks. Now, there are some unusual caveats for this lineup, with the most obvious one being Buggy the Clown. While Buggy may officially have the title of Yonko in the eyes of the world, he is in reality nothing more than the figurehead of Cross Guild. The true power that backs up Cross Guild and the ones who should technically be considered as Yonko are in fact Dracule, Hawkeye's Mihawk, and the Desert Desert King Sir Crocodile. So for the purposes of this video, we will have these two pirates team up and act as the 4th Yonko crew for the new generation. This is for no other reason than the simple fact that having Buggy on their team instead would just be too much of a handicap for the rest of the team to overcome. And to be honest, substituting Buggy out for the world's strongest swordsman, as well as someone who had fought against Whitebeard and lived, is only going to be beneficial to the new generation of Yonko. And now we can look at who I think is without question the strongest member of this entire group, which is Redhead Shanks, the former cabin boy of the Pirate King, who now stands as one of the main powers of the world, although until recently we never actually had a chance to see him in action. While we had heard a lot about just how strong he was, and we had seen proof of it in both Blackbeard and Sengoku's reluctance to fight him at Marineford, as well as the fact that he had managed to face Kaidou beforehand, it was only in the most recent arc that we had seen the redhead captain make his move. And what a move it was, as he had wiped out both Captain Kidd and his first mate Killer in just a single attack. Considering that these two were fresh off of the back of assisting with the takedown of both Kaidou and Big Mom, with Kidd himself playing a massive role in Big Mom's downfall, taking both of them out in one attack is a level of power which we have rarely seen matched within One Piece. Another point worth making is the unusual situation that Shanks finds himself in, as both a member of the new generation of the Yonko, as well as a member of the previous generation. The simple solution to this is to have one version of Shanks in each lineup, the one in this generation being Shanks as he is currently in the manga, while the Shanks in the previous generation is him at the very start of the One Piece manga. This conveniently brings us to the lineup for the Old Yonko. Now, as I just mentioned, the version of Shanks in this team will be as how he was when Luffy had first set sail. While One Piece had started 25 years ago in our time, it was actually only 3 years ago within the timeline of One Piece. This puts Shanks at about 37 years old and realistically exactly as strong as he is right now. The rest of this generation of Yonko is made up of Kaidou, King of the Beast, Governor General of the Beast Pirates, Big Mom, Charlotte Linlin, Captain of the Big Mom Pirates, and lastly Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, Captain of the Whitebeard Pirates. Kaidou's strength is also something that needs little introduction, with the monstrous overlord of Wano having acted as the main powerhouse opposing the Straw Hats for hundreds of chapters. Widely considered the strongest creature in the world and wielding a mythical Zoan Devil Fruit, the only thing more fierce than Kaidou's strength is most likely his durability, having survived over 40 execution attempts, and after having taken up the hobby of jumping through sky islands, there aren't many in the world who are capable of breaking through Kaidou's skin with their attacks. Even if they were able to harm the King of the Beasts, it is another thing entirely to actually take him down. Moving on to Big Mom, who is a character whose strength has been criticized for being inconsistent throughout the series. From a terrifying and near unbeatable foe in Whole Cake Island to more of a gag character throughout early Wano, before climbing right back up to standing next to Kaidou as the unquestionable symbol of power of the previous era. Her Devil Fruit, while extremely versatile, may not initially appear to be geared towards battles as some others, but when she uses it to supercharge her own soul and amplify her already monstrous abilities, she becomes a powerhouse that no one would want to face off against. Now lastly, we have Whitebeard, the former strongest man in the world. He was considered to be the man equal to the Pirate King and the most recent ruler of the seas. Even at the point where he was his most oldest and probably weakest, it still took the entirety of the marine forces as well as the warlords of the sea to stand up against him. His punches were powerful enough to summon tsunamis and rip apart the very world itself, and while he may have come out worse in his fight against Kaidou, the ease in which he then went on to take down Blackbeard just proved that even with one foot in the grave, the strongest man in the world was fully deserving of his title. But that doesn't mean that he isn't without any weaknesses. We've seen both Garp and Rayleigh stress the impact that old age has had on their strength, and Whitebeard was also handicapped by an unknown illness. Marco himself even said that during Marineford that he had weakened considerably, as he was unable to detect the sneak attack of Squad, and he had failed to use his Conqueror's Haki to prevent the executioners from killing Ace. But with all the combatants named and their strengths assessed, let's finally get into what would be the greatest battle that the One Piece world would ever see. This is the new generation of the Yonko versus the previous generation of the Yonko. Entering into the battlefield, we see these 8 monsters staring one another down, neither side intimidated by the other. Suddenly, 2 sword lights flash out between the groups, colliding in the center before cancelling each other out in an epic explosion of Conqueror's Haki. 2 redhead swordsmen branch out and begin to clash with each other, neither able to gain any advantage over the other. The Shanks from both generations find themselves in a stalemate, with the difference in strength between them being minimal. They each act as a blockade, preventing the other from attacking any of their other teammates. It It is extremely fortunate that this is the case, as without the pair cancelling each other out, then either of these Shankses would likely be able to sweep through the majority of the opposing team. Now while they are locked in with each other, it leaves the remaining fighters to choose their opponent. Luffy is next to make a move, immediately launching into his Gear 5 state and charging across the battlefield. Before he can make it very far, however, he is sent flying by a crack in the world itself, bouncing off of the ground and into the distance. He climbs back up with his rubber body undamaged by the attack and stares back at the source of the interference, and it's none other than the strongest man in the world, Whitebeard. Luffy breaks out into a grin, something which Whitebeard matches, and the pair drive for each other. Whitebeard swings his Naginata, which Luffy dodges with the inhuman and ridiculous flexibility that Gear 5 offers to him. Both of their attacks are coated in Conqueror's Haki, with each clash sending shockwaves into the surroundings. As the fight wears on, Whitebeard's strength begins to wane, and he begins to struggle to keep up with the speed of Luffy's attacks. His aged body and ill health have begun to catch up to him, and while he can still match up against Luffy for strength, he can no longer respond to every attack in time. Eventually, the accumulation of damage becomes too much, and the giant that is Whitebeard falls against the captain of the Straw Hats. This is no disservice to Whitebeard either, as other than Shanks, Luffy probably stands as the strongest member of their team, and even though Luffy would defeat him and still have strength left to spare, it must be remembered that this is probably the weakest that Whitebeard has been in over 60 years. While their fight is taking place, Blackbeard takes the chance to make his move, looking between Kaidou and Big Mom as he judges the latter to be the weaker of the two, and he tries to take her by surprise with a Gura Gura no Mi enhanced punch while she is distracted, but Big Mom would easily be able to see the attack, with her homies even acting as a backup pair of eyes, had it been the case that she was way too distracted to notice Blackbeard's attack. Big Mom begins to gain the upper hand as her immense strength slowly pushes Blackbeard back until she overcomes the effects of the Gura Gura no Mi fully, sending him flying. Blackbeard rises with his blood now running down his face and with a shocked look in his eyes. Big Mom jumps towards him and her sword is ready to slice through him when Blackbeard extends a darkness covered hand and grasps her arm. Suddenly her sword, Napoleon, as well as Prometheus and Zeus disappear in a puff of smoke. All of Big Mom's homies are removed from existence as the Yami Yami no Mi cancels her Devil Fruit power. Now it is Big Mom's turn to be shocked, as the Devil Fruit ability she has wielded since her childhood is no longer available to her. Before she has a chance to recover from her loss, she is struck head on by the might of the Gura Gura no Mi, as her body appears to split apart as reality itself is unable to hold itself together when faced with the power of the strongest Paramecia fruit. In a fit of rage and with the last bit of her strength, Big Mom strikes out with a fierce blow. Blackbeard, having begun to laugh in the belief that he has already taken down his opponent, fails to react in time, and the two Yonko both fall under the other's blows. This fight was a close call on both sides. Blackbeard had chosen his opponent well, knowing that Kaidou would still be indestructible even without his Devil Fruit power. He would be easily able to counter both the Yami Yami no Mi and the Gura Gura no Mi, and to be honest, Whitebeard's strength, skill, and greater experience with the Gura Gura no Mi would have made for more of a difficult matchup against Kaidou. Big Mom played to his strengths perfectly, being heavily nerfed by the sudden inability to use her Devil Fruit. The only miscalculation which Blackbeard made was underestimating just how strong Big Mom's Haki was, which allowed her to deal immense damage even though she was receiving the same, resulting in a simultaneous knockout. Our final matchup sees the combined might of Mihawk and Crocodile face off against the strongest creature in the world, the King of the Beasts Kaidou, and for the first time it is the older generation who takes the initiative to attack, with Kaidou sending out a series of wind blinds to slice his two opponents to pieces. Mihawk draws Yoru and easily dismisses these attacks with a flick of his sword, while Crocodile allows himself to be sliced apart before reforming together. Mihawk notices the scar that's already present down Kaidou's torso. This was a gift given to him by the sword of Kozuki Oden. He then aims a slash at this weak point, but Kaidou bats the slash away before charging at Mihawk, identifying him as the stronger of the opponents. While Mihawk was naturally the superior swordsman, Kaidou's strength and durability is really fierce to go up against. Any of Mihawk's attacks which broke through were unable to deal any significant damage to him, while the only thing preventing Mihawk from becoming overwhelmed by the sheer power of Kaidou was the frequent interference of Crocodile, stopping Kaidou from being able to focus all of his attention on the swordsman. Eventually, Kaidou realizes this fight is not going his way and he changes tactics. While still focusing on Mihawk, he begins to pay more attention to Crocodile, and as the Desert King appears behind him for another attack, Kaidou quickly shifts targets, connecting head-on with Crocodile and sending the former warlord flying. Crocodile struggles to rise rise from the ground, heavily wounded by the surprise attack, and this victory didn't come without a cost for Kaidou though, as by shifting his attention even just for a moment to take out Crocodile, he had left himself open to Mihawk's blade. This was an opportunity that the world's strongest swordsman was never going to miss, and he slices Kaidou's back from his hip to his shoulder, delivering the most devastating wound that the creature has ever received. Despite the severe damage, Kaidou manages to fight on, as his inhuman endurance somehow allows him to gain a slight advantage against Mihawk. But before the outcome of this fight could be decided, the battlefield had already begun to grow quieter. Big Mom and Blackbeard's fight had already concluded, and with the two Shankses still locked in a stalemate, only one pirate was left to free roam, Luffy. Seeing Kaidou still persisting, he immediately joins forces with Mihawk, and slowly but surely they overcome the King of the Beasts together. With 3 of the older generation now fallen and 2 of the new generation still with the ability to fight, it was only a matter of time until the deadlock between the two Shankses was broken, with the red-haired swordsman unable to compete against his carbon copy, as well as the addition of the world's strongest swordsman and the might of Gear 5. The situation ends with the new generation of the Yonko having fully overcome their predecessors and achieved victory in this epic battle. In the end, the outcome was determined by only the smallest of margins. Whitebeard's weakened state had left him unprepared to face an endurance match against a wielder of a mythical Zoan Devil Fruit, and after their fight, it had left Luffy with enough strength to tip the scales in the Kaidou vs Mihawk and Crocodile fight, and then being able to break the deadlock between the two Shankses. With all of that wrapped up and the Big Mom and Blackbeard fight ending in a mutual defeat, it was only a matter of time for the new generation to win, as Mihawk and Luffy team up with the present day Shanks to seal the victory once and for all. To wrap up this video with a little bonus, however, I think that we should also match our winning side against those who could be considered as the original Yonkos. While this isn't 100% accurate, since the term hadn't been invented then, nor were these pirates technically operating all at the same time, it's still a title which I think all of them are worthy of. The 4 members of this group would be Rocksteady Zebek, Goldie Roger, Prime Whitebeard, and the Golden Lion Shiki. As much as I would have liked to have Garp replacing Shiki in this list, it obviously doesn't make sense for a marine to have his name amongst the pirate emperors of the sea. The result of a battle between the new generation of Yonkos against this original Yonko group is to no one's surprise, as this group absolutely destroys whichever group you put up against them. While Shanks and maybe Gear 5 Luffy would be able to hold their own for a while, they would soon be overwhelmed by the sheer power of their opponents. Prime Whitebeard and Shiki would easily be able to take on the 2 of them, while Rocksteady Zebek, who managed to face off against both Roger and Garp in a fight, would make quick work of Blackbeard, Mihawk and Crocodile. Even Shiki, the weakest of this group by a considerable margin, is still considered someone who would be a tough fight for any of the modern Yonko. In the fight between the new Yonko and the old Yonko, the new generation would be victorious, though when compared to the originals, they still have quite a way to go. If you did enjoy the topic of this video, then remember to subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts for any other future recommendations for power scaling videos. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you're up to date with all of my One Piece chapter reviews, theories and character analysis videos. Lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next upload.
If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.